I'm going to call this meeting of the Gloucester School Committee and also the East Gloucester Veterans Memorial School Building Committee to order. This meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with state open meeting law, consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. And the first order of business is a roll call. Maria, could we have a roll call of the school committee?
Mr. Favazza.
Here.
Chairman Pope.
Here.
Ms. Prince.
Here.
Mayor Taken.
Here.
Ms. Watson.
I don't think
Ms. Weeson. Not present. And Kathy Clancy.
Present.
Okay. Laura did tell me that she was might be late. Something to do with the dentist. Okay, Chris, could we have a roll call of the school building committee?
Yes. Jonathan Pope,
Here.
Richard Sapphire,
Here.
Jason Rogers,
Here.
Greg Katamartori. Not here. Kathy Clancy,
Here.
Donna Compton,
Here.
John Dunn,
Here.
Gary Frisch,
Here.
Matthew Fusco,
Here.
Grant Harris. Not here. Joe Lucido.
Here.
Thank you. Ryan Marks. Not here. Amy Pescarello
Here.
and Mayor Romeo Taken.
Just got to find where the unmute button is. I'm telling you, I've got so many different things. I'm trying to figure out more things, but I'm here. You see my name,
Thank you.
believe me, I'm here. Mentally, no, but my name's there.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Now, I would start by just saying Ben Lummis is here, who is our future superintendent of schools, and will be sitting on this committee once he takes officially takes that position. But maybe we should just go around and introduce ourselves as to who we are and what committees we're on and who we represent, because I'm not sure everybody on the school committee has met Jonathan Rich as well as his team. So let's just do that. So if you could just say what committees you're on and what your role is. Brad, you want to start?
Sure. My name is Brad Dorr. I'm a principal with Dorr and Whittier Architects, and we are the design firm for the project.
Chris?
I'm Chris Tremblay with CBRE Heary, owner project manager.
Tom?
And I'm Tom Ellis. I'm the project director for CBRE here as project manager.
Okay. Ben? You're muted.
For Bill?
Ben, I said.
Oh.
Yeah, good. Ben Lummis, I'm the incoming superintendent.
John Rich?
Yeah, hi, I'm John Rich. I'm the CEO of WT Rich Company, and we're happy to be your construction manager on this project.
Matt?
Matt Fusco, principal at the Veterans Memorial School.
Donna? You're muted. There you go.
Donna Compton, I'm the purchasing agent and I'm on the building committee.
Gary?
Gary Frisch, I'm the school CFO, and I'm on the building committee.
Bill?
Bill Booth, I'm with CBR Heary, and we're the owner's project manager.
Joel?
Joel Favazza, I'm on the school committee.
Amy?
I'm Amy Pasquarello. I'm the principal of East Gloucester School on the building committee.
Rich?
Rich Sapphire, Superintendent of Schools for the next week and a member of the School Building Committee as well.
Michelle?
Michelle Rogers, I'm with Dorn Whittier. I'm the project architect manager.
And Brendan?
Hi there, my name is Brendan Henry. I'm the IT operations manager here at the Gloucester Public Schools.
Maria?
Hello, Maria Puglisi, recording secretary for the school committee.
Mr. Dunn?
Hi, John Dunn, City CFO and member of the School Building Committee.
Jason?
Hi, Jason Rogers, member of the School Building Committee, parent representative.
Joe Lucido?
Joe Lucido, Assistant Director of Public Works, member of the School Building Committee.
Samantha is here.
Hello, Samantha Watson, member of the school committee. I'm fully multitasking, so there might be noise in the background if I have to talk with the kids. My apologies.
Okay. And someone who needs no introduction, but Mayor Taken.
Safathia Romeo Taken, Mayor, City of Gloucester, and school committee member by charter and ordinance.
Okay.
And I guess the building city member too, I guess.
Okay. Kathy?
Kathy Clancy, I'm on the school committee and also on the school building committee.
Okay. I'm not sure if I got everybody because these
Melissa?
keep jumping around. And I'm Jonathan Pope, and I am the chair of the school committee and the chair of the school building committee. What we're going to do. What?
Jonathan, it looks like Greg Cavatori is trapped over in attendees.
Oh, okay. Brendan?
And I think Melissa, did she get an introduction?
No. Greg, Brendan?
The school committee.
And I think we just brought in Greg Catamatori. Greg, you want to just introduce yourself to everybody?
Thank you very much. Greg Catamatori, I'm the planning director and a member of the school building committee.
Great. So what we're going to do tonight is we are going to have a presentation about what has changed in design-wise and what has been refined in the design since the preferred schematic report was submitted, which was the last time everybody sort of looked at all of this. Then we're going to get an update on the costs. And the school building committee has made a number of individual recommendations. For example, they added some square footage around the in the gymnasium, and those costs are going to be reflected. And also there's been a lot of discussion about value engineering, and a number of things have been taken out. All of these things have been approved by the school building committee, but I don't believe the school committee, unless they've been going to the school building committee meetings, have seen these. After we have the presentations, we'll open it up for questions from anybody. And then we will, after all the questions are answered, we'll make a motion for the school building committee to approve the schematic design submission, or we'll approve the owner's project manager to submit the schematic design submission to MSBA. Then the school committee will vote to approve that submission. Now, there's some specific votes that we have to take. That's pretty much what we got to do tonight. The preliminary, I think, Tom, it's called the C4, which is essentially a budget outline, has to be submitted tomorrow. The number that we're going to vote tonight, the bottom line number, is the number that is going to be submitted on the schematic design, and that is a number that will go on to the ballot in November. It doesn't change. It can go, well, it can go down, but it cannot go up. So keep that in mind. So let's move on to Michelle is going to start with the changes since the schematic design report.
Great. I'm going to share my screen now. And somebody give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Perfect. Great. Thank you. All right. So I think it's been a while since we've, so you can see it. There we go. A while since we've presented to the school committee. So we wanted to just walk you through the schedule update, show you the site plan, which hasn't changed much since the last time you had seen it. We'll take you through the space summary and some of the additions and changes that we've made in that and the floor plans, and then we'll remind you what the exterior building and design and the interior building design will look like. So the schedule update, tonight we're going to be asking for your vote for the approval of the schematic design submission to the MSBA. And once we submit that package to the OPMs in July 3rd, they'll be reviewing it and then submit to the MSBA on July 8th. We then sort of go into pencils down mode and we wait for the MSBA to come back to us with their response and comments. And we have 10 days to report back to them, which would bring us to about the first week of August. And then in mid-August, on August 26th, we will have a MSBA board meeting for the project funding. And then we'll be going out on the ballot for the city vote in November, as Jonathan had explained. The site plan, this is very similar to the one that you had seen a few months ago. Whoops, cursor here. So I just wanted to highlight some of the design directions that we have incorporated into the design, and that is this turning lane into the site, the dedicated parent drive loop in the morning for student drop-off, and the extended loop that takes them around the playground in the afternoon so that we can increase that. And then a dedicated bus loop on this side here, so the buses and the parent drop-off are separated from each other. We have 120 parking spaces, which include the lower parking lot, as well as some parking along Webster Street. And we have improved sidewalks and crosswalks all along Webster Street, along the school property. One of the things that we had questions about earlier was whether or not we had enough room for the bus turnarounds and the fire truck turnarounds. So we worked with our civil engineers and made sure that we had the turning radius for the buses as well as fire trucks in this loop. Fire trucks can also come in and loop around and access the front of the building. And then we went further and showed the turning radius for the fire truck to go all the way around the building. And in this particular loop, you can actually see that we can still park cars, overflow parking along the back side of this loop and still get our fire trucks around here. These drawings have been submitted to the fire department for their review, and they've approved all of these drawings. So going into the space summary, some of the things that have changed since we issued our preferred schematic report was that our core academic spaces have gone up in square. This is all based on net square footage. I want to be very clear about that. So this is net square footage, which is what we report to the MSBA. Some of our core academic classrooms have gone up in square footage. Some of this was derived from some of the special education spaces that the MSBA asked us to push back into core academic, as well as into admin and guidance. Some of this was derived from removing the HVAC units that we had within the classrooms because we're going with an all-electric system. So we had originally about 12 square feet dedicated to displacement air within each classroom, and that went back into each of these classrooms. The special education square footage went down because of these two moves here. And then art and music remained exactly the same. Health and physical education increased. And this is what Jonathan was speaking about earlier. We had a lot of discussions about whether or not we would have enough space within the gymnasium for spectators to sit and watch a basketball game or other events that were happening in the gymnasium. And because other elementary schools within the district don't have this space, we thought it was important to make sure that we did. So we've added some square footage beyond what we have had originally into that gymnasium so that we could provide an area for seating for spectators. So that's the increase that you see here. The media center, dining, food services, and the medical area all remain the same. Admin and guidance increased, again, because we were asked to move some spaces that were originally dedicated to special education into those. And then we added a mother's room for nursing mothers, as well as a room that we call the Nest, which is a clothing pantry, which services, stores clothing for students who might need clothing, backpacks, and those and school supplies for students who might need that. So each of those two rooms added 100 square feet each to our net square footage. So overall, those changes were made. You won't see too many changes in the floor plans as you go through because we're able to push them into the building in different spaces and take over some of the gross square footages that we had within that space. Other areas we did expand some of that, but overall the floor plan of the building remained pretty similar to what you had seen before. Main entrance of the building, come in. This is the vestibule where after hours, after the start of school, you would go into the general office, but on a regular basis, students would enter straight through. This is your administration suite. The staircase that takes you to the gymnasium and the art and media center and the rest of the second floor. Cafeteria and dining services in green, back of house in gray. And over here are your general classrooms in blue and special education classrooms in pink. On the second floor, if you were to come up that staircase, you would cross, up that staircase, you would cross over and into the gymnasium. And that spectator seating is here on the sidelines. We have the stage performance area, which also had moved to this level, along with the music room. Art over here adjacent to the media center. And again, general classrooms in blue and special education spaces in pink. And then on the third floor, this is dedicated to only general classrooms and special education spaces. The interior design of the spaces hasn't changed much since our previous presentation. You can see your main lobby as you've entered into that space. Administration would be here on your left, your cafeteria and dining services on the right, the staircase that takes you up to the gymnasium, a bridge that would bring you across. The media center and art centers are on the left. This is on the second floor after you've come up that set of stairs. Come around your peekaboo windows into the media center, and then the bridge into the gymnasium. Cafe and dining services on the first floor. This is a kindergarten general classroom. First through fifth grade general classroom. The gymnasium with the stage and some seating adjacent to it. And the art and media center. The exterior building, this is, as you're approaching, you're driving up Webster Street. This would be that main entrance where you would come in and make your circle around to the parking area. The main entrance of the building is here. And you can see the cafeteria below, gymnasium above, art and media center, administration, all overlooking the plaza here in the front. The bus loop beyond, and the kindergarten and academic wing beyond that.
Jonathan, can I ask a quick question with that slide?
Sure.
I just want to make sure I understand the flow of it. So the black car on the right is facing the wrong way. Normally traffic would be coming out from that direction?
That's true, yes.
Okay, I was just confused. Thank you.
Thank you for picking that up. This is the bus loop here. The students would get off and enter this door here from the bus area, and they would go straight to the backyard or to their classrooms. And then your kindergarten classrooms over here. And as you see here, this is the emergency drive access that would take you to the back. And that is all of my presentation. Do you have any questions? I don't know if I can see everybody. If you have questions, you'd have to unmute.
If you use your raise your hand button, it helps because we can't get everybody on the screen at once. Or I can't, maybe somebody can.
It looks like Melissa has a question.
Okay. Melissa, and then Joel.
Thank you. So two things. One, I didn't see any pictures of the play area out back, the bigger play area. So I'm assuming that it hasn't changed from the original plan.
It has not changed since the last time you had seen that plan, so that it has the 1st through 5th grade play area, the field in the middle, the turf field in the middle, and swing sets on the left-hand side. I don't have a.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't have a rendering of that, but I do have the site plan if you want me to go back to that.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure that there wasn't any changes, or if there were, what they were. And my question is,
a half basketball court back there as well.
You have a basketball court back there too?
A half basketball court. So
Okay, great.
Anything else?
So my question is about special ed. So there's a reduction in about 750 square feet in special ed area. So how did you come to that conclusion? What was the conversation to reduce that need, knowing it's our highest need school that needs those spaces?
So these were spaces that we had originally deemed as special education spaces, but they are actually office spaces. So there would be the office space for a special education guidance person. We had put those in the special education bucket. The MSBA had said to us, that's actually administration. So we had to move those spaces back into the admin area. They're offices that would have a space for meeting with a parent or another professional.
And Michelle, this is Amy. I believe one of the spaces, special ed spaces, was actually larger, the language-based classroom. We made larger at one point, and the big change is the program leader offices were counted as admin, not sped. Is that correct?
They need to be counted as admin, not sped. And
right. So we actually have more special ed spaces for students if you look at the larger language-based classroom. Yes. It's just the office for the chairs is put in a different category, but we didn't lose any space for children.
That's correct. We actually increased the classroom space by 50 square feet.
Thank you. Good to know. Appreciate it.
Joel, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. So I guess my two questions, and I've asked this before, I don't know that I ever got an answer, but my question is, how do we reconcile, some of the ways in which education and child safety is moving, and what I'm referring to is, again, that area out in the front. How do we reconcile the fact that, while we as a district are going to be armoring buildings to prevent people from getting access to students, we're going to build an elementary school that has a playground on the public street side and has, all this outdoor space in front of the front door. I'm concerned, I'm kind of confused as to why we're going forward with the design that, doesn't have things tucked behind the building, that would have such prominent, especially the youngest children that we're going to have, are going to be out front closest to the street. How do we in 2020 reconcile that with the trend toward, the need to have the man trap in the vestibule and stuff like that? How do we explain how this coincides with the trend of child safety?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, asking the architects. I mean, you build a lot of schools, you see a lot of school design. You're helping to design the armoring of O'Malley in the high school, I think. So how do you reconcile what you're doing with O'Malley and with GHS with putting an outdoor classroom on the street side and putting the youngest children on their own playground on the street side?
So we often see playgrounds in the front of the building and in view of other classrooms and the administration area. The reason why we harden the inside of the building is because we don't want intruders to come into the building. Typically, what you see is that playgrounds, which obviously have to be outside, are located around the building and in close proximity to the classrooms, visible, very visible from either classrooms or administration areas. So I think it's very appropriate to have this kindergarten group right near the classrooms. It's really very close to where they're located now with their playground. I mean, the visibility that you have from that space is very close to where it is currently located. And to have them around back doesn't, I mean, you're not changing the ability for somebody, who's a perpetrator to access those kinds of spaces.
The other part, Joel, I think we're trying to have a balance, of course, of safety. And when kindergartners were out there, we definitely would have it adequately staffed. But we also, it's a neighborhood school. And when school is not in session, to have that playground out front, it's very welcoming for the neighborhood students to have it really integrated into their school, into their neighborhood, so that's part of their daily lives. We obviously want to be as safe as possible, but it is an elementary school. It also needs to be welcoming and inviting and part of the neighborhood. So we're trying to find a balance of, yes, it would be great if we could just secure them 100% all the time, but the kids are going to be outside. They need to be outside. And it really makes it a part of the neighborhood. I think it's an important feature.
That leads to my second question, which is, given the amount of open air green space the current Veterans has, and given the amount of open air green space the current East Gloucester has, how do you reconcile a half basketball court size turf field as adequate green space for these children who, as Amy pointed out, need to be outside and need to have a chance to run around? How is this enough space for 400 plus children to adequately get their exercise and adequately feel like they can, again, based on what they're losing, what they have right now, what they're losing compared to what they're getting in the back of this school. Again, I don't know how you reconcile those needs with what you're proposing.
It's a glass is half full versus half empty kind of thing. I'm looking at it as what they're gaining. The facilities that we have right now are not adequate. The playground structure, there's some parts that are roped off because it is old and unsafe. We do have a very nice field at East Gloucester, but we do not have the facilities that this new school would give our students. And yes, 400 would be a scheduling challenge for Matt and I to get the recess and all of that out there and coverage, but we're up for the challenge. And I think the gain outweighs the loss of a big field.
Again, why set yourself up for that challenge, right? Why not go, like you had there's a blank slate here. Why set yourself up for this challenge? Why not go, hey, listen, this is going to be, a lot to stuff into a little. I appreciate that you should have a good playground. It's sad that, we as a community don't provide adequate playgrounds to all of our schools. Like that, shame on all of us, right? But, that's a weird compromise. Well, we can either have a nice playground or a nice field. Like we're spending tens of millions of dollars on a new elementary school. Like you can't have a field and a playground. That's not something to expect,
Well, we will have a field. I mean, right now we have a field East Gloucester is often filled with dirt, and the DPW does the best they can to maintain it. But this is going to be one that will be able to take more wear and tear the way it's being built and designed, with drainage and all of that.
If I can just jump in too, I can say that just speaking to the playground structure prior to COVID, that really is a neighborhood playground structure. It's used pretty constantly by the neighborhood kids. As far as the use of the green space, most of the time, the kids aren't really going across the field. We like to keep them as close to the building as we can for safety reasons as well. So those are, I feel like that is adequate space out back. And of course, you know, we will be staggering recesses and that, so there will be, it's not going to be 440 kids out there at once.
Okay.
Yeah,
Stefan, you have a question?
I just wanted to state that the playground structures that we have planned for this facility are greater in both what they provide as well as the capacity for students to be on them than either of the two schools currently have.
And Michelle, they'll be more accessible to students with disabilities, correct?
Yes, they will. And you can, the way that the climbing structures and those kinds of things work, more children can play and play together on them.
Okay. Safasya, you have a question?
I had several, but some have already been answered. It just looked like it was a larger scale of West Parish to me in the front. I thought we were doing lesser windows, my bad. As far as, I didn't understand the part of the nursing room. Do we, is that for, we having childcare there in school, or I don't understand that part.
It's a mother's room for staff that have to nurse. Just this past year, I had 4 staff members that we had to find space for that to happen because they had babies at home. By law, we have to provide them a space.
No, that's great. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what it was for because I've never seen it in any of the schools. So I think that that's great because I know I have a lot of family members and we were thinking about, same thing as here. I mean, you have to have nursing, pumping, the whole thing. So that's great that they have privacy. As far as, playgrounds and that goes on, let me tell you something. If I have to hear one more time, at first, let's go. I'm going to say how I have to say, and you're going to have to listen because you all asked me to be on here. And, we said, okay, we're going to look at East Gloucester. We're going to look at the same fields, and you all wanted the green space. We couldn't have that. We couldn't talk to Greenpeace. We couldn't turn. We couldn't buy espressos. We couldn't do the paper road. We couldn't do that. We're not going to do Green Street. We're not going to go that. We're not going to go that way. All this whole times, everything else that all the complaints they had here could have brought them all forward. Constantly bring them forward. Constantly bring them forward about playgrounds, everything else. You had all opportunities, everything else. I don't want to be a martyr. I don't want to be a hero. I don't even know if this is going to go through. We invested, you convinced me to, if I didn't invest the $500,000 to do, the survey or whatever, then we look like terrible people. We didn't care about our school or administration. And so we gave that money and, we're bringing it as a debt exclusion. I don't care what people want to call it. We have to ask the public. We're bringing more public input. We're doing all that. And now we're getting to where it's the point is everyone looks like a hero. Why aren't we doing it, Beeman? It's not happening right now. Why aren't we doing it, Plum Club? It's not going to happen right now. We need to figure out something. And please, when they say green space, parking space, not for nothing, but I hung around those areas too. I played in those fields, and that baseball field, don't get me wrong, those ladies and everything else, Meadows Field, green space was great. It's not handicap accessible. Friend Street had one that's called Green Street. Everyone played basketball. The city council at the time shut it down. It's a parking lot. You want me to shovel and clean, and you have a little tiny little swing set that you people call that a playground. But yet nobody uses it, nobody cares, and we still use it as a parking lot. Here, we're going to have adequate space, adequate teaching space. We're going to have the gym that we want. We're going to have the programs we want. We don't even know how the future looks as far as going outside. Some things, good teachers. But let me tell you something. I've been, to Beeman and all the schools, whether as a city councilor and now as mayor, proudly on your, little spaces that everyone says you can't even have a garden. And you have out of the smallest space, the best gardens for backyard growers doing things with children, interacting with children out of a box that gives them the best education, hands-on, dirty. I got worms thrown at me, mice screaming, hollering their love. We sat in a little corner, played duck, duck, fruit, duck, duck, orange, whatever, ran around, and it was the size of my office, and the kids were having exercise, classrooms, education, the whole thing. So you don't need a friggin' football side field playground to have exercise. What you do need is a damn good education. Something's going to help our special needs. Something's going to have a room where a child is going to be able to flip out and not kick a door down and have everyone watch them. And the teacher or the paraprofessional or the therapist will be able to calm that child down and say, okay, this is it. We're going to separate the room. Because all our schools right now, you have nothing for my special needs. You have nothing for kids who hit and throw tantrums. Look at the doors that we had to put metal doors, like we're in cages in some of the schools. you know what? If we're gonna have a school that everyone's treated fairly, and everyone's gonna be able to have access, and everyone's gonna have an education, and everyone's gonna be able to benefit. And what we need to look at too, and you all need to look at it since I have the school committee on now, is that we are probably looking at opening schools, okay? But we also need to look at what's gonna happen when they come in. And I guarantee you, they're gonna be more happier to go into a classroom, okay, see their teacher and interact and be able to learn that way than on a computer like we're doing right now. So you know what? We have to work together. Either you want it or you don't. All our personal opinions or how we got here and how we didn't get here, whatever, forget it. Are we gonna be able to convince the public that, you know what, this is needed for our children and our future? And that's what we're here for. If I have to hear about a playground one more time or hear about this or hear about that, that's not the issue. Traffic is, absolutely. How the bus is going to get there, absolutely. Did we forget about security? I know people right now don't like police officers or everything else, but the main concern last year, you were all telling me, is children shouldn't be this way. If there's a security, if there's a fire, if there's someone that breaks in, how are we going to get them in? They took care of every little nook and cranny for this new school, is how to protect 400 kids, how to have access, how to have cars, and how to go aside. So you know what, people, you asked me to be on here today. You asked me how you know what, I've been really good. I've been really quiet, but I've had it. You know, I've been zoomed out. And you know what, my main concern right now is to make sure that our teachers and our special needs and all students have fair access. Because no matter what, wherever you go, they can have exercise. Because I've seen it in our schools, and I've seen the teachers, and I've seen it interact out of a box. And the best thing is getting your hands dirty, playing and everything else. So whether it's a half of basketball, half of those kids wouldn't be able to run to a full one right now because no one's been out of the house. We need to get them out of the house now, and we need them to enjoy life. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, we're discussing the adequateness of the space outside, and Joe made a comment that the school committee needs to do better or something to that effect, making sure we have adequate space. I believe this project does have the adequate space, and I can also say too, like I said in my testimony when we go to the school to begin with, I went to the school on 2 different occasions in October of last year and watched recess. And I can tell you both times, 97% of the kids were playing on the play area and not in the field. So while I agree that it would be great if all our schools had acres and acres of green land, I don't think that the fact that we won't have that amount of space doesn't mean that it's not adequate. We have 2 play spaces. I think that, in my opinion, is adequate. And also, the comment that was made too, can you confirm that MSBA would consider the amount of space that we have adequate in the project? In other words, if we submit this, are they going to come back and say we do not have enough play space? Are there certain guidelines and regulations for that, for those types of spaces when building a school project? That basically is my question. Do we have enough space for play space for this project to go forward according to MSBA and regulations and things like that?
Yes, is the short answer. There aren't really, there's guidelines for children under 5, but those children don't exist at this school. So we use some other guidelines or standards when we start planning playground equipment and playground space. And the space that you have here is actually larger than a more recent school that we just built for 450 students. We feel very confident that you have quite a bit of play space, hardscape place space, as well as space for playgrounds and space for running around for all of the children in the school.
And Michelle, what was it too? There was a statement saying that the trend is not to have play areas in front of schools. Is that true? I'm sure you've been involved, or you know people who are involved in school projects. Is the trend now that play spaces are in the back of the building, or are schools still building in the front of the building, knowing they're in neighborhoods where kids can enjoy?
We just completed another school that has a kindergarten playground at the front of the school. And I think I've showed you pictures of those playground spaces because we've modeled this school playground space after that one. So their kindergarten play spaces at the front of their school, their art space, their garden growers program, and their social gathering spaces all at the front of the school. And then behind the school, they have a very similar to yours, a large play area with a small turf, very small turf field, and the climbing structures, swing sets, and the hardscape play area, which doubles as a turning radius for emergency vehicles.
And these spaces are also protected, right? So, we've gone and worked with the landscape architect to have physical barriers strategically located so that, you don't have any chance for cars or anything to go and enter those spaces. The spaces are fenced, where appropriate. You wouldn't notice necessarily all of the barriers, but, that's the idea is, you have kind of a barrier, but it's viewed passively.
Thank you.
Kathy?
I think Brad just addressed what I was going to ask Michelle, is to talk about the safety aspects as to fencing, which we know there's fencing built into this design. We know there are gates. We know there are, as you said, Brad, kind of barriers that are not imposing, but act as that protection. So those things have all been talked about and considered, as well as, we did visit that school, Michelle, that you're talking about in terms of their play space, and they had a very small school site. I don't even think they had any, one very small drop-off area at that site. And, I was even asking, where the heck do people park? Because this is in the center of a community, and they figure it out in their neighborhood, not on the school property. So this layout provides a lot that we know is a concern for the community in terms of parking and circulation, which also adds to our safety.
That's correct. So we have gates, we have fencing all the way around the property, as well as fencing around the playground spaces. We have boulders and bollards and rocks and benches, that act as deterrents as well. So I think we have a number of passive safety features here that look like they're part of the design, but they're actually also part of the safety features.
Joel, you have another question?
Yeah, I have a question about the interior, but I just want to say, because I'm sensing some hostility here, and I think something to look at is the questions I'm asking. I'm not going to be alone in asking these questions, and as the mayor said, this has to go out and has to get buy-in from the community. And so, I would point out that while I understand that the look and the feel of educating students has evolved and continues to evolve, I don't know that everybody knows that. And if you think about, people my age who are voters and who have children entering the school, and you have people who are my parents' age who had children who haven't been in the school since the 90s or 2000s, they're all going to remember what they think schools are supposed to look like, right? And statistically, probably 2/3 of all those students and parents were either at Fuller, Beeman, or West Parish by class size, and all those schools had, huge outdoor spaces, and they're going to remember, well, this is what my child had when they went to 5th grade, and these poor kids over the new EG vets aren't going to have any of that stuff. Yeah, the inside of the building looks neat, but they don't even have a field over there, right? Again, whether the field is or is not important, I think there's probably very good ways to address that. But instead of getting hostile about me asking these questions, I think you should realize I'm not going to be the only one asking these questions. And if we're to get buy-in from the community, we need to make sure, we as a collective, group, the building committee and the school committee, can articulate, in an accessible way, why, again, this trade-off that we're talking about, that, about play structure versus play space is in fact the right move in 2020. So I just kind of want to put that out there for people to think about, instead of like having a reaction to it. Say, okay, well, here's how we answer that question and explain in a good way why this is okay now. My question for the interior is the stage area that's off of the gymnasium, where those stands are. So when the stage is being used for some sort of play or recital or production, how is the audience set up?
So the audience would be sitting in movable chairs on the gym floor, and those seats that were in that diagram that I showed you, they actually fold up and go into a chair storage space.
And how many seats fit in that gym?
Actually, you know what? I did not do the layout, so I can't tell you that offhand, but I will do a layout for you. But it's more than what would have been in the cafeteria.
Right,
Michelle, it's also worth noting that we made sure that the stage was high enough so that during a performance, there would be better visibility. I know that was a problem at West Parish, so we very much took that under consideration.
That's correct. And that was the driving force to move it into the gymnasium and not leave it down in the cafeteria, so that we could get a height that we wanted from the stage, as well as the volume that you need in the stage area.
Thank you.
I just want to add that it's a full-size gym, Joel. So, you know, you can imagine how many chairs might fit on a full-size gym floor, which is bigger than the gyms at both Veterans and East Gloucester probably combined. So,
Yeah, listen, don't get me wrong. I think that gym is great. I'm so
yeah,
excited.
no, I'm just trying to give you trying to give you a visual. No.
I think that was a great, like, you know, learning from what did and didn't work at the last one and making improvements. Like, I think that was excellent. Good job, everybody, on that for sure.
Fafia? You have your hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have one more question about the interior. I didn't get a chance to look as the floor plans came through. Again, just trying to think forward. You know, if there's a push or continued push to, you know, move bathrooms into a gender neutral configuration, you know, are we set up to handle that? Do we have, is there a gender neutral bathroom proposed? And if the rest have to go gender neutral, is that going to require, you know, massive replumbing, or is it going to be pretty flexible?
So currently we have multi-student user toilet rooms on each floor, but we also have a series of single user toilet rooms on each floor. Right now they are dedicated to staff. Those could easily be switched over to be staff and student for students who don't feel comfortable using a multi-user toilet room. We also have additional toilet rooms on the gym floor level because we needed to get a higher toilet count on that. So there's 2 additional single-user toilet rooms that are not dedicated to staff on that floor as well. So you have the possibility, we did not design it to go single-user gender neutral, but you have a number of single-user toilet rooms on each floor. That answers your question.
Okay.
You're on mute, Jonathan.
You're still muted,
All
Jonathan.
right. Oh, dear. So seeing no more questions, we're going to move on to the cost estimates, and I'm going to turn it over to Tom and Jonathan.
Okay. Jonathan, I didn't get an updated summary sheet from you, so I'll just go ahead and use the reconciled number that we used for the you know, it was available yesterday. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay. So to give you a summary of where we were, we've done 3 cost estimates for the job. The architect has done one, CBRE Heary did one, and then after we brought on WT Rich as the CM at risk, they performed one, actually had done one as part of their process. We established a process to reconcile all the estimates, and at the end of the day, the 3 estimates were reasonably close to each other to the point where Dorn Whittier's and WT Riches were within such a small percentage. It was amazing that they were done independently. But anyway, at this point, the reason for bringing on the CMR early on is to get their participation and buy-in into the budgeting process. So we have established the baseline cost estimate as established by Rich for moving forward in the process. Our cost estimate was a little higher, but at the end of the day, the actual trade cost number was, I think, within $300,000 or $400,000. So for all general purposes, they were reasonably close in scope, which means the drawings were really pretty good. And I think we mentioned previously that the drawings that Doran Whittier put together for this SD set were pretty complete. So I think the numbers are really strong in terms of their ability to reflect the actual scope of work that's anticipated. So what we've done is we did this original reconciliation with value engineering items. And this was the actual, let me see, if this, the second column, Jonathan, was your you said post reconciliation.
Yeah,
that was
before,
after three cost estimators together.
Yeah, before the value engineering. Yep.
Right. So this was where we landed with the Rich's estimate after the reconciliation of scope with all the three, where that came out with about a 92,000 gross square footage, which is different than the net square footage with the grossing factor. This is out dimension of the building, which then resulted in a cost per square foot of approximately $578. We spent a fair amount of time looking at options for reducing some of the items in the project without impacting program and impacting overall quality. I think the overall issue is, and we can go through some of those in general if necessary, but at the end of the day, we were able to bring the cost down to about $564, which is bringing it into more of the middle range of the cost for elementary schools. One thing that needs to be recognized is as elementary schools go, this is on the smaller size in terms of the enrollment. A lot of the other schools and many of the other ones are much larger. Some of them are double size, so that actually there's more of an efficiency on the larger buildings because you have less infrastructure spread over more square foot of classrooms. So those costs per square foot on the larger buildings actually can be a little bit less. So there's a little bit of cost because of the scale of this project and its sets. So we've really spent a lot of time and basically reduced the total construction cost by about $1.3 million, which I think was a very good effort. And it's required as part of the MSBA process. And now that we've got it rolled into the cost estimate, this is the cost estimate that will be used for the budget that will go into the SD set. So maybe we'll just stop right there at this point and see if anybody has any initial questions on the construction cost. Or Jonathan, if you have any costs or thoughts you want to mention.
I just say, Tom, right, it's $1.3 million as a result of the value engineering exercise that we went through, as compared to the cost before, right? There's even some more savings associated with that, correct?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
I think
just so people understand the sort of things that we removed the lentils over the windows. We went with poured concrete instead of precast concrete for pavers, and items like that. We use a different tile on the floors and the entryways that is just as durable, but not as quite as totally bulletproof. So there's nothing that we did in getting this $1.3 million out of the budget that affected the programmatic use of the building. It was all really, to some extent, durability issues as well as, appearance.
Right. And Jonathan, one thing I want to add is that there was a conscious effort to be sure the parity between West Parish and this school are comparable, and that there was not a swing going all the way down to start cutting costs, because the parity is important as well. So,
Jonathan, I have a question, if that's okay.
Yeah, okay, there's more to this, so go ahead.
Oh, so
This isn't it. There's a lot more in the economics.
but is this the final, like this 51.9, that is the construction cost? Or when we first were looking at vets, it was at 69 million, then it crept up over 70. Are those going to show up, or is this?
We will get there. This
Okay.
is the actual cost of building the building. It's not the cost of designing it, or.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get
Right,
to those costs soon.
there's a total project cost, which is really what the overall budget will be. But the two components that the MSBA is asking us to submit early before the package is that the cost per, the building cost, and really what it ends up being in cost per square foot, and the total project cost that is within the city's budget. So those are the two pieces that we're looking at tonight, and that will go into the SD package.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, so this is, so I don't know if there are any other costs, it seemed like where we're at. I think if we want to go right into the overall total project budget, Jonathan, or?
Sure. I think there'll be questions when we get the whole picture.
Okay. Let me get out of this. All right. So, so what we've done here is take the cost that we just reviewed, which ended up being this 51,925,000 number, which is the schematic design submission. And what we did was to take a look at kind of how the project has progressed between the preliminary design program and the preferred schematic report. And this is really kind of where we last left the project cost. So as you can see, at that phase, the project was 54,127,000 round numbers, and now we are at the 51,925 number. So the major piece is what we've tried to do is, I will let John Dunn talk a little bit about the intent of how the city plans to bond and finance this, but the intent is to establish the MSBA project budget, which is anything that's going to be a part of the MSBA funding process. So originally there were two projects to be abated and demolished, which included the Veterans site and then also the East Gloucester site. And that was included in the PSR number and contributed to the total project cost, which was part of the issue there about that. So we've removed the East Gloucester abatement and demolition from this project due to the funding process. And so that's one of the components of how that has come down. Okay. So, and it reflects the actuality of the general conditions, general requirements, insurance that W.T. Rich will be using on the project that's a part of their project costs that are definitive now. So these are really much more precise numbers at this point, and which gives us a better accuracy. So that number has actually come down as well. So then once you get beyond the construction cost, then you start adding the owner direct cost. So we've got the pre-construction CM fee, which is outside the construction cost, which was not included directly in any of the other budgets. The soft cost, what we've done is we've taken this soft cost budget that was previously there, we've increased it by the additional FF&E and technology increase that was agreed to by the school building committee last Thursday, of an extra $500 per student for technology and $500 per student for FF&E. So above the MSBA reimbursed amount of $1,200 per student in each category. We've reduced the construction contingency and the owner's contingency going through here to, and then these are all owner direct costs that if it is not spent, you know, if it's not used, then it's not spent and returns back to the budget. So these are all numbers that are within the owner's control at this point. We've also removed, as part of the MSBA budget strategy, to just only put in the budget whatever projects are directly related to the school project, is the swing space for temporary school use, as well as ball field relocations. That I'll let John Dunn talk about how that's going to be addressed separately. But right now, what we're looking at is the actual total project cost for the MSBA project scope of $66,700,000. And from that, one would remove the current appropriation for the feasibility and schematic design phase, which has already been approved and paid separately. So the actual number that would be on the fall appropriation request for the MSBA project scope would be $65,700,000. So that's the overview.
Samantha has a question.
Thank you. Is the demolition of East Gloucester going to be discussed further someplace else during this presentation?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Jonathan, your mic's still muted.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah, Joel had his hand up, I think.
Okay, I'm not seeing, okay. Joel, you have a?
It was along the lines of Sam. I'll wait to hear more about the East Gloucester before I ask.
Those costs that were in the budget originally have been taken out essentially because they're not reimbursable. And what we're putting forward is the actual building. John Dunn can address how the city plans on paying for those other items. John, would you like to address that at this point?
Sure. So I want to talk about that now. So there are a number of ancillary pieces to the overall project. Some of these pieces are not going to qualify for any level of reimbursement from the MSBA. So instead of including them in the MSBA package, it doesn't seem right to do that. We're going to treat them separately. So those items would be demolition and remediation, if any, at East Gloucester, some amount of restoration of the site, swing space, and also ball field relocation. We don't know exactly what those numbers are going to be. We have some holding numbers that we put in early in the project, maybe around $3,750,000. Could be more, could be less. Because they are not reimbursable, the proposal would be that if the override vote in November is successful and the community wants to move forward, that we will then come up with a separate appropriation to be proposed to the city council to include these other ancillary overall total project costs that are not subject to MSBA reimbursement. And we'll see where that goes. We presume that it will be successful. We've been talking about this for a little bit, about how to propose it this way. And that would be our plan as to how to move forward.
Any other?
Jonathan, I have an additional question about that.
Okay, I'm not seeing hand. I don't see everybody because of the sheet's still up. So go ahead, Samantha.
So I would argue that the success of this project hinges greatly on the success of making sure that the city approves relocation of the ball field, swing space, and the demolition of East Gloucester. So, I mean, I think before we move forward with this, are we saying that the city is not guaranteeing that, or what's happening as far as that's concerned? Because I'm not comfortable with that, because we've moved forward with this project over the last however many years saying that this was going to happen. So
it's guaranteed. We are going to demolish the East Gloucester School and work on the baseball field, whether it's a bigger baseball field, a larger baseball, everything that I said, it's just that we can't put it here as the debt shift. It's not going to be asking the taxpayers' money to say it's going to be part of this debt shift. This here is for the school only. We will do it on the school side. The city side. We will demolish the East Gloucester School and we will do the baseball field as we said. We've committed it from day one, and I'm going to still commit it day two. Absolutely. You know what we didn't want to put, let's say $3 million extra on here to say, okay, and then people think, okay, this is going to be, we have to put what's just reimbursable through the MSBA.
Yeah,
the other ones is for us.
That makes total sense. I thought I heard that it would be dependent on whether or not the city council approves it, which if that is the message, I don't think
everything we do is a city council approval. The city council has been asking it for day one, Samantha, even beforehand, that to make sure, we get it in writing. We're going to do that. They had public hearings on it. So I don't see this city council members here saying, no, they're not going to, put up open space, because that was part of, I think, that whenever that goes through, what the state's going to say, open space. And the fact is everyone wants a baseball field. So they all know it, and they've all voted yes, and they all know that's going to happen. It's just that we're not going to ask it through, like when you go present this to the voters saying, okay, $3 million is going to be also for this, because it's not going to come out of that. So we just wanted to let them know.
Okay, thank you.
Joel?
Thanks. I share Sam's concern, especially given the length of time. I mean, by the time this comes to fruition, there could be a new mayor, there could be a new city council, and there'll probably be the repercussions of COVID-19 pandemic on the tax revenue shuffling through. And this seems, we saw what happened to Maplewood, we saw what happened to Fuller.
Well, I beg your pardon. It's coming up this
Excuse me,
November. Unless I die of COVID, I will be here, and I'll put it in writing before I die.
And I'm just saying, we can very easily envision a situation in which 2+ years from now, we as a city are having a discussion about lots of tax revenue, the amount of, the override goes through, what it's going to do to the tax base, and go, we just don't have $3 million to take this school down and to relocate these ball fields. We can't do it right now. And then we're going to, and we've been promising this all along. My understanding, and I may be wrong, but if it was part of the debt shift that gets approved, the money would then be earmarked for this use. And it'd be a lot easier to ensure that that money gets spent the way it was intended to get spent. If it's left outside of this debt shift, as Mr. Dunn said, the city council could say, hey, listen, we just, we'd love a new ball field. We'd love to take down East Gloucester, but we just can't do it right now. And
well, Mr. Favazza, if I can intervene, I also had this discussion with Senator Chai. I had concerns too, because I could get hit by a car. One of you might want to kill me. But the fact is, I did say to Bruce Tara, open space for open space. So if any land gets transferred to the city, we're going to have open space for open space. So guaranteed, East Gloucester School will be demolished. And that's a guarantee. We will make sure of that. The same thing is that when it comes up for verbiage, now remember, when it comes up for verbiage, it comes in front of the city council. We can always put in whatever to make sure at that time of vote, when the city council puts up their verbiage, you can always say, we would make sure that whatever is going to be voted on. This city council is not going to go back on their word, and you have 2 years. You still have this whole remaining year, and you still have next year. You can always put it in there, so they cannot change it, and you know that. You know better than anyone else because you are an attorney. So, and we have John Dunn and we have myself. Like I said, it's bad enough that everything was all switched around of what fields and what fields, but I would not go back on my word to make another baseball field for anyone. Whether I'm here or not, I will fight it, truth and nail. Unless I said I'm dead.
Again, I just worry that there's no guarantee any of us are going to be the decision makers 2 years from now, and other decision makers may decide differently. We will have sold some neighborhoods some assurances that then would not come through. But if we had included it in this price, it's more of a guarantee that even if today's decision makers are not tomorrow's decision makers are required to adhere to the plan set forth by us.
Because the fact is, I didn't want to put it in there, Joel, because I don't want people to look, I want people to look at education. I don't want people to sit there and say this is a ball field or tearing down a school. If anyone, and you are on the school committee, are here for education, I want people to understand that this is what we're giving our children, an education. The ball field is not the part of the education or tearing down a school. And like I said, Senator Chow will make sure that it's put in there so nothing gets transferred, so we cannot do anything unless we are guaranteed that money is going to be there. Mr. Dunn reassured me that we can borrow and we can do it, and you always have to go in front of the city council no matter what. You know what, COVID or whatever, well, we have to first see if it's going to be voted on and how it's going to be voted on. But I can guarantee you that you can ask the city council, because they have to put the verbiage, and when they put the verbiage, that you can also say that we would like so much money, because by then we'll know exactly what's going to, whatever, and then you can say, can you allocate this? Because we've done that before, up to. We've always voted on things on CSO projects when I was in city council, saying, okay, we're going to borrow up to, let's say, 4 million, up to. So in case it doesn't cost that much, then the money gets reimbursed back to the city. If not, then it's there. So it can be done as a city council, rest assured. Thank you.
Let's take a question.
Thank you. So along the lines of what Safathia said, we are a school committee. We are here today to vote on what is best for our kids today. We have 2 schools that are deteriorating. We have educational issues that need to be addressed. Kids are getting special ed in hallways right now, not in special rooms. They are in closet-sized rooms. So I'd like to keep the conversation to what is needed today and not be worried about who's going to be a leader in the future to find money to tear down a school. So my question is, and I can't tell if it was kind of answered through Safathia's comment, but Article 97, if that, I'm assuming it passed. I never saw any documents to say whether it did or not. But the agreement is that we are going to provide the East Gloucester space as a park space. So I would assume that a park space does not include a school in the middle of it. So therefore, the school would have to be torn down for it to be in compliance with Article 97. So I'm hoping that that's an easy
That's correct.
answer.
That's what I'm talking about with Senator
And that we can
Chow.
get back to talking about education and our kids and what's going on in the schools and not arguing over fields outside the schools. We need to make this decision. We need to make a decision that's best for kids educationally, and that's why we're here today to take this vote, is to vote on a school that is going to provide all the educational needs for our kids so that our kids have what they need. Joel made a comment that he's concerned about what parents remember as schools look like. I don't want to be a great grandmother remembering my kid, my grandchild had special needs, that they were in a hallway. They need space. This school provides space. Let's talk about all the good things that come with this project instead of trying to figure out everything that can go wrong 2 or 3 years from now. And it's going to base our decision on the vote tonight. That's all I ask. We need to bring this in to why we're here tonight.
But again, I'm not going to be the only one looking at it. If we have to get community buy-in, they're going to look at. I mean, I appreciate Melissa's point, but if we want to be successful in this, instead of getting hostile when I'm raising some questions, go, hey, listen, I'm not. If you think the East Gloucester community is not going to hear that the guarantee of the.
It is, Joe. You're not listening, no. And then you want to know why we're interrupting. It's first of all, that permit, and that permit to go through with the state in order to get that land, Bruce Tarr said it. We are not going to give you open space for no open space. It's already in it.
Mayor, please. I'm looking at my window at I-4C2, and I know what you promised the state you're going to do with that, and you didn't do it, and it's still there, right? People in the city are not going to trust this city to do something unless they're mandated to do it. We have a really bad track record in the last 15 years. So if you think we're going to sell this project I'm just saying it might make sense to incorporate these costs because you're going to scare the East Gloucester community that they're going to have a Maplewood Ave school sitting in their neighborhood for a decade. You're going to scare that they're not going to get their ball field back in the next 5 or 10 years.
We need
to buy in. You know, we have the costs worked in.
What we're doing here, Joel, and the point is, we will put a, there'll be a motion for the school committee, and you can debate the merits of the motion at that time. But right now, we have a presentation, we have the experts in front of us, and they have answered the questions. We're not going to debate whether you like the answers or not right now. You can when there's a motion, but right now, let's talk about questions, answers, and facts. Okay.
Jonathan, hold on one second. The whole point of this is for us to ask legitimate questions, and it's up to us to get this out into the community and get buy-in. All along, we have said that the cost will include a ball field relocation and the tearing down of East Gloucester. Now, all of a sudden, it doesn't include that. And so I know for sure there's 2 attendees on here right now that are not going to be okay with that. And they will absolutely use that to their advantage, because why not? I completely agree with Joel that
Mr. Dunn, add $5 million to that, please. Just add $5 million. I mean, if they're not going to get reimbursed. Why can't you say we're going to do this vote on the speculation? First, the permit has to go through the State House, and the State House says we have to give them a space, which is East Gloucester. Then you can say, with the speculation that the baseball, you can vote and add anything you want on it.
Well,
but this here is what we're going to put to the public of what it's really costing.
All I'm saying is that all along, I know myself, I have gone out into the community and said, the cost that we are voting on includes the ball field relocation and the tearing down of East Gloucester. If that is not true, then I'm concerned about that, because all along, my message has been very clear to the community members who are concerned about those 2 pieces of the project. So it comes to me as a surprise that that's not included in the cost that will be voted on. That's all I'm saying.
Samantha, I think you're getting hung up on a word, cost versus project. The project always has included those things. John Dunn, as the city CFO, has figured out how some pieces of it will get funded separately from the actual construction of the building. So no one is going back on any word. It's all, you know, something's coming out of one checkbook, something's coming out of another. So, and what's going to be going before the voters is the merits of building this school, with the assurance that obviously East Gloucester will be taken care of as the Article 97 requires, and on the mayor's wonderful word that that ball field will be built.
If you think this city is going to believe the assurance from all of us, you're not living in the same city I am. No one trusts that we're going to do the right thing here.
Jonathan, is it possible, the Article 97 piece stands, and several people have said that, is it possible for the city to consider the city council to take up an appropriation for the ball field and for the swing space, but and do so prior to the vote, but with the language that says pending approval of the school project on the November ballot? It's anticipatory, people see it out front, but it's also binding only if the approval for the project goes forward in November.
That's a question for John Dunn, I think.
Yes, it's possible. So I've said publicly that we didn't want to put these ancillary costs into our dealings with the MSBA because it would be paper that would be going back and forth, and they would not do anything with it. They would have to file it, they would have to review it, it would become part of their final project review, but it would not be subject to any reimbursement. I've also said publicly that should there be a positive vote on the override in November, that there will be an appropriation order going before a loan order going before the city council in the next following mayor's report to deal with these other costs. Now, the mayor has, in her time as mayor, put forth 30 loan orders. They've all been approved by the city council. I can't imagine that given the situation that we're talking about here, that the city council would not act positively on this if there was already a positive override vote.
So that
And yes, there is nothing guaranteed in this world,
right.
but I could not imagine that this would not be supported and approved and move forward.
Right, but that argument goes both ways. In other words, if the language is established prior to the vote with a caveat that says pending approval of the overall project in November, it gets it out in front. It reduces the overall cost of the school side, as you said. It gets this issue, which is pretty sensitive for some, it gets it out front, and people would be reassured that the city council has already said, you vote in favor of it, meaning the building project, then the money will be there for the ball field and for the swing space.
And Rich, you wouldn't even need the caveat, because if there is no positive override vote, the other things don't happen.
Okay.
So there's no funding needed because they're not going to happen. So
Does that
yes,
not-
if the mayor would like to put an appropriation order forward for the council to vote on before the override vote in November, then that is her decision. I will draft the language and we will move it forward.
Just so long as you said, we understand if the project, it may act as an incentive for the project. If the project goes forward, you get this brand new ball field, blah, blah, blah. And if it doesn't, back to square one.
Well, I will do that. I just got off the text. He's in a conference call with both Chip and Bruce, and that was in the Article 90, whatever it was, 97, that said open space and that we give them the same exact size space, everything else, demolition to the school. So I have no problem doing that, putting it before. That, like I said, we've done it before. When I was in city council, the same thing with his I-4C2 that he's looking out the window with Carolyn Kirk and everyone else voted on too. Yeah. And the first school and everything else you people did and put it on the city side. I have no problem, putting more crap on the city side with no problem.
That'd be great because it's metaphorically, it's putting our money where our mouth is.
That's it.
And it ain't costing us nothing unless everything goes through.
Exactly.
Samantha, you still have your hand up?
No, sorry about that.
Any further questions about the cost of this project? So what we're looking at right now is a bottom line that would go before the voters in November to build the school as described in the in all of the documents that we've been had up to this date with the changes highlighted tonight. And the bottom line would be it'd be $66,700,000, $1 million of which has already been paid. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move to an exclusively a discussion about that. We'll take a motion to approve the submission from the building committee, and the discussion will be limited to the building committee. After they have voted on it, we'll, assuming it's a positive vote, we'll take up an exclusive motion from the school committee, and they will discuss it and vote on it. Okay, is that clear? Nobody has any more questions before we go into this phase? Okay.
Jonathan, I'll just make one comment to reinforce John, the basis for pulling this into, separating these special costs. Being able to close out the job and get the final MSBA audit gets the city's final payment sooner, because delaying the abatement and demo of the East Gloucester site would push the schedule out farther. So that's one of the other reasons, is to be able to close out this job with the MSBA and not further delay the closeout, which will cost the city additional funds to float that money for that period of time. So.
Okay, so do we have a motion from the building committee for the approval of the schematic design submission? Or technically, I have some language here that we actually have to use. And the motion should be the East Gloucester Veterans Memorial Consolidated Elementary School Building Committee, FKA, the East Gloucester School Building Committee. That's in there because technically that's the name in front of MSBA, has completed our review of the schematic design submittal for the new East Gloucester Veterans Memorial Consolidated Elementary School project. As such, we hereby approve and authorize our owner's project manager, CBRE Harry, to submit the schematic design related submittals to the Massachusetts School Building Authority for further consideration and review.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Is there discussion?
I'd like to simply say that I think that the committee has done its due diligence, the value engineering part, and taking a look at many of the pieces that we felt could be done at a more economical basis. I think that bringing the price per square foot down to almost $15 a square foot is evidence of that due diligence, and I'm appreciative for that effort.
If I could jump in just to say that Amy, I know I speak for Amy and myself, that it's a beautiful design. It's going to give these kids everything that they need. We're very excited.
Anyone else? I would just like to say that this is a project that we've been working on essentially since 2014. We've gone through a whole litany of options and possibilities, and the committee has done everything it can to get public input, and we at this point, this is the point of we either throw in the towel or we move forward. There's no real alternative to not moving forward. East Gloucester School is in dire condition. And the estimates that we have is that it would probably cost $1 million a year for the next 10 years just to keep it without making any improvements to the educational program, but just to keep the facility safe and sound for the next 10 years. And there's no real percentage in that for the children. This is a project that will bring equitable, or bring us one step closer to equitable education in this community. We have a fabulous facility in West Parish. This will give us another fabulous facility, and then we need to move on and take care of these Beaman and Plum Cove. But this is what the city needs to do. I know that this is not, may seem like an inopportune time because of the economy and COVID, but the reality is MSBA will commit to this figure, and they will commit to the reimbursement of the eligible parts of this budget, and that's a substantial amount of money. It probably is around a third of the cost, probably more, at least a third, probably more of the cost of this building. They may not have that money next year. They may not have it in 2 years. Right now, it's committed, and we need to move forward on this project. So I hope everybody supports moving forward, because it's still going to come to a vote of the community. It's still a number of votes away, but this is the next step, and that we need to do. We're not going backwards unless we go back to the very start. There's no, the building committee has been working hard. They've taken votes on every part of this. So now this is a vote to approve the totality of the submission. So
Jonathan, if I can add, the thought of going back to the drawing board being 5 or 6 years into this is a scary thought. East Gloucester is not getting any better as far as the building facility is concerned. Matt and I did start to bring the staffs together prior to school closure. We started with staffs that were very reluctant, and by the end of the day, they were excited about it. They're looking forward to joining us as a community. And to stay where we are would be a huge disservice to the students, the staff, and the families, because they are not afforded the same education that others are in our own city, and we're not giving them the education in a facility that they deserve. So I really hope it moves forward.
Kathy?
I just wanted to say, Jonathan, I appreciated everything you said. All of it is extremely important to this project. It has been, part of, I think, the vision of the school committee from the time we did West Parish, that we knew all of our buildings needed to be addressed. And this addresses, the worst elementary school we have in terms of conditions. To say it's substandard is probably putting it nicely in terms of actual facility pieces, not obviously the education, because our teachers do everything they can to compensate for the things that they have to do workarounds. But I think, we need to be mindful that this is 28% of our district that's going to be served by this facility in terms of, 2 schools out of 7 schools that we have. I mean, that's a lot of staff and children that will benefit greatly, and families. I think we've taken great care in terms of where it's located, in terms of community amenities, and hopefully things the community will take advantage of. I know from talking to people along the way that, basketball is always one of those sports that they have a difficult time finding an adequate facility to practice in. And here would be, a lovely place for our, youth and hopefully adult leagues to call their home, and they'd be able to schedule their time. And I'm sure there's many other sports that could use that gym. We have the cafeteria. I think the outdoor space will be something we can be proud of, and have people, that come into town to drive around to our schools. Sometimes we always say, our schools don't always look good, but you need to go inside to see all the great things that are going on. Hopefully this would be, yet the second one in the community that people will drive by and say, I feel good already, and now let me go inside, not, oh my God, why am I going into this building? And then I just have to reiterate that the special education population that served at Veterans, truly needs, they have specialized programs that this space will accommodate in the most appropriate way. And we owe that to those kids, and we owe it to, to all the other kids that have other special education needs to have adequate space and privacy. I mean, there's just, the positives and the requirements that this would fill are endless. So I'm going to obviously vote in favor of it, and I'm certainly going to hope that the community gets behind it by November.
Okay, is there any further discussion from the building committee? Seeing none, Chris, could we have a roll call vote?
Yes. Jonathan Pope?
Yes.
Richard Sapphire?
Yes.
Jason Rogers?
Yes.
Greg Catamartori?
Yes.
Kathy Clancy?
Yes.
Donna Compton?
Yes.
John Dunn?
Yes.
Gary Frisch?
Yes.
Matt Fusco?
Yes.
Joe Lucido?
Yes.
Amy Pascarello?
Yes.
And Mayor Taken.
Yes.
Thank you.
It passes unanimously. Now, because this has to be submitted, or elements of this vote has to be submitted tomorrow, I'm going to ask, make a motion for reconsideration.
So moved. So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
Are you asking for reconsideration of the school committee?
No, not yet. We're still in the building.
Okay.
So this is the building committee. We've done this before.
Okay,
You know how it works.
yeah.
What we're saying is.
I know it. Yes, you don't have to explain. I got it. I just didn't know if it was the school committee or the other one. Okay.
I'm explaining it to everybody, not.
All right.
I know you know. You've been there. So we are going to vote a positive vote saying we want to reconsider this, a motion to reconsider. So a negative vote means we don't want to reconsider it, and this vote stands and can be certified immediately. So everybody understand that? Is there any discussion? Okay. Chris, could we have a roll call vote?
Yes. Jonathan Pope,
No.
Richard Sapphire,
No.
Jason Rogers,
No.
Greg Kettermatori,
No.
Kathy Clancy,
No.
Donna Compton,
No.
John Dunn,
No.
Gary Frisch,
No.
Matt Fusco,
No.
Joe Lucido,
No.
Amy Passarillo,
No.
and Mayor Taken.
No.
Thank you.
All right. So that concludes the building committee portion of this meeting. And now we'll move on to the school committee. And what we need now is a motion from the school committee that authorizes the chair of the school committee to sign the local actions and approval letter on behalf of the school committee. In other words, there's a document that has to be signed by the chair of the school committee, as well as the mayor, and as well as the superintendent. That has to be accompanied with the submittal that this building committee just voted. So we need a motion to allow me to sign the local action, which, like I say, authorizes this submittal.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay. Melissa?
I just want to say that I'm going to support this motion because I support the conditions of Article 97, which means I support the building being torn down like the rest of the school committee does. I support the ball field being moved like the rest of the school committee does. I support the kids being educated in spaces that are safe and large enough to educate them. So I am going to support this motion for those reasons. Thank you.
Joel?
Thank you. So I want to start off by thanking the school committee, and I don't want anyone to think that I don't, genuinely appreciate the work they did. But to me, this end result isn't yet satisfactory. I don't think it can't ever be satisfactory, but I don't think it's there. Is it better than what we have? Absolutely. But is it good enough to expend the time and the money required to bring it to fruition? I haven't been convinced yet. And Jonathan at the last vote mentioned that this has, been in the works since 2014. Really this has been in the works. The culmination of, a series of decisions the city has made since 2008, including building those modulars that are falling apart, building West Parish without consolidating, selling the Fuller property instead of building on the field. And so if there is, a gun to our head to get this done, regardless of the shortcomings, we put that gun to our own head. And I don't want to be part of continuing to make reactionary decisions in line with what got us here in the first place. I think there's potential to do this right. I think it is close, but I don't think it's there. And more importantly, I've said consistently since 2015 that I was not going to vote on any project, regardless of how good it was, that did not include funding to tear down East Gloucester or remediate the site. I've seen what this city does with abandoned properties. I've seen what this city does when it promises the state it's going to do something. Unless it is in this override and made part of this, even though the loan authorization idea that Dr. Sapphire had, which I appreciate, we can authorize that loan and then never actually go forward with it, especially, again, when all the ready excuses come forward thanks to COVID. So I'm voting against this. Again, I thank everyone for their work. I wish we'd spend more time on it. And that's where I'm at.
Kathy? Kathy?
I don't want to repeat what I said for the building committee vote, but I obviously am in full support of this, and I'm hoping, Maria, you could take my comments from before and put them underneath this deliberation for the school committee, since we're all on the same recorded message. So my sentiments are still wholeheartedly supporting this.
Any further discussion?
I have my hand up, Jonathan.
Okay, I don't,
Sorry.
go ahead, I don't see it, but.
Okay. So I have always been a huge cheerleader for this project. I've always been fully in support of the work that the building committee has done. I'm very, very disappointed that at this vote, we're learning that the full cost doesn't include the ball field relocation and the tear down of East Gloucester. I am disappointed that the committee didn't anticipate that we would have concerns about that. I'm feeling like, to be frank, it's dishonest. I have, just speaking for myself, I've gone out into the community time and time again and said that the vote will include both of those costs. And unfortunately, because that's not the case, I can't support this.
Any further discussion?
Yes, I do. I asked for it to be removed because I want to give the people of the citizens of Gloucester the real numbers. So if I put an estimation of demolition on this, so let's add another 5 or depends on what kind of a baseball field, 10. So when people go out there, they're going to say, oh, that's not really the whole cost of the school. That's also, they're going to target Meadows Field, and they're going to target people who want that. So people will say, I'll vote for it, but then you got to take those numbers out anyways, and you got to take that. So people are not going to really vote on the full picture if you add those numbers in. They don't get a full picture. This way, they get a full picture of the cost. So they'll say, it's going to be $65 million. If I add another 10, it's just going to make, you know what it's going to look like? It's going to blame the Meadows Field. It's going to blame the school. It's going to blame that. And people say, we'll vote on it, but make sure you take that out. And that doesn't happen. Well, this way, if it's with the chapter, whatever it's called, Article 97, which it is, and I just talked to Chip, and then we do say we're going to want the field, and we put up to 3 million, whatever number that we think a baseball will get the numbers before the vote, then they'll know what they're voting on. I don't want to mislead the citizens of Gloucester by telling them it's going to be costing $71 million. All I kept hearing is the new school's costing 71, the new school costing 71. And people were getting upset. And then, well, if you're going to do a baseball field and you're going to do that, they don't need that. Use the high school one. Well, you don't need it. If you're not going to use the school, well, it's not going to take that much money to throw it down. I want people to see a full picture. Now, do I like this whole scenario? Because we've been working on it for a long time. And it's been going back and forth and all these other things. And to say, and Samantha, no offense to you, you just come in, but Joel, you've been on some of these meetings with us together, and it's your vote or whatever, it's because, you know what, let me tell you something. If that's why you're not voting, well, I'm sorry, that's ridiculous, because you know as an attorney, and anyone else, Samantha doesn't, but everyone else knows you can put any speculation on any votes, anything that goes, when it goes in front of the city council to get the verbiage, you can ask for anything way ahead of time. I don't want to mislead the citizens. It's bad enough we keep calling it, override. It's a debt exclusion, and I want them to see the honest price. So no one blames Meadows Field people or the demolition or anything else. The demolition has to come down because that's the speculation, because I was concerned that we wouldn't do it. We put that with the Article 97. So that's in there. I just asked for Chip, and I just confirmed with Bruce, and he says, if not, we'll add it. That's not a problem. We're going to demolish. And the fact is, yes, I promised them, because when they first came to my office, I thought it was in East Gloucester. And when they said to me, I said, they're not going at Veterans. What are you talking about, Green Street? It's not happening. And when it does, I called them up and had them come into my office and said, you give me a list what you want, because this is not fair. I did say it. I will do that. And I don't care what anyone says, because the city council all said that to them. We've been to numerous hearings, and to say it's not fair. But if you add that, you're misleading the citizens, and you're saying it's going to cost another $10 million more to frighten them, and then they're going to blame these poor women or whoever else. So give them the fair number, let them decide on the fair number. Thank you, and I'm supporting this tonight for education.
I'd just like to say a few things. One is, one of the things that's terribly polarizing in this country today is people don't work together, and they discard the possible because it's not perfect. Okay, and being on a committee and being part of a community is about making compromises. And this way of proceeding with the funding of the school was not done behind closed doors. It was done at the school building committee meetings. And once again, people like to say, you know, well, I didn't know about it. Well, you know, it's not our job to knock on your door and tell you everything. The minutes are available, and, you know, we do the best we can. We're all volunteers here. And, you know, if you're going to vote against a school, because a vote against, you know, essentially if you prevailed in your point of view, there'd be no school. Nothing would happen. It wouldn't be, oh, we can tweak it a little and make it perfect. That doesn't happen. That's not the way it's going to go. The way it's going to go would be that we go fishing, you know, and forget about the kids and don't worry about the kids. But I don't believe any of us are here because that's our motivation. So I would ask you all to think long and hard about the big picture instead of your own personal issues about small parts. There's been the city CFO, the city mayor, have all basically said this is how we can assure the funding for this project's ancillary costs. And, you know, if you don't want to vote for it, don't vote for it. But just be cognizant of what you're really voting for. You're voting for no new school. So, Maria, can we have a roll call vote? Maria?
Were you calling me, Jonathan?
Yes,
I'm
we need
sorry.
a roll call vote.
I had to rejoin because my internet went down.
Okay.
Mr. Favazza,
No.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
I want everyone to have what Carriage has. Yes, I'm voting yes for this.
Ms. Watson,
No.
Ms. Weason,
Present.
and Kathy Clancy.
Yes.
Mayor Taken says yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. The motion carries 4 in favor, 1 present, 2 opposed. We now want to ask for a motion of reconsideration.
So moved.
Reconsider the vote just taken.
Reconsider the vote.
Second. Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Maria, can we have a roll call vote?
Mr. Favazza,
Yes.
Chairman Pope,
No.
Ms. Prince,
No.
Mayor Taken,
No.
Ms. Watson,
So, sorry, we're voting no to say we're not reconsidering.
Correct.
So, no.
Ms. Weason,
No.
and Kathy Clancy.
No.
The motion carries 6 in favor, 1 opposed. And I thank you all for your participation. And we will be moving forward with this project as best we can. We need a motion from the building committee to adjourn.
Moved.
Melissa has her hand up, Jonathan.
Okay.
I just want to ask a question before we leave, because obviously there's some division here and we need to figure this out going forward. Is the building committee, or is there anyone in the city or school side doing an analysis of what the immediate needs of the schools, being Veterans and East Gloucester, what they will need to show what the comparison will be if this project doesn't fail, of what it's going to cost the community over the next couple of years? Because I don't think that message is getting out there strong enough. So I'm just wondering, is that work going to be done? Because that's going to be part of the conversation for the vote in November. It's easy to say, I'm not voting for something because the baseball field's included, but where's the backup plan from the people who aren't supporting it? How is those schools going to get paid for and repaired to be adequate and safe for our kids going forward? So when is that work going to be done so that we can inform the public of what the reality of this vote is?
Melissa, the work was done initially in the first eligibility phase for East Gloucester. It was not done for veterans. So we do have all that information for East Gloucester, and I alluded to it that generally speaking that the cost would be about $10 million to maintain that building for the next 10 years. We don't have numbers on veterans. We could probably get some. So that work is half done, okay?
But the $10 million doesn't include, correct me if I'm wrong, fixing the fact that kids are in hallways being taught. That just keeps the school status quo, correct?
Correct.
So where is the work to show that special ed kids and kids that are trauma sensitive will have a space if this vote does not pass? Where are they getting their issues addressed besides the hallway? Where is the cost of that?
It has already passed.
Okay.
The vote has already passed. So we're not arguing whether to vote for it or not and at this point.
Oh, the November vote, the November vote.
vote.
For those that are voting no over a baseball field, what is the answer to the question that I asked?
We'll get that. You know what? She's right. People are going to say, okay, so why can't you just fix it up? We'll work on that. At the school committee, you know what? We'll let everyone know. I have to go to a city council. What we can do is, you know what? Let's figure out what is, I'll talk to John, what we'll talk to Dean, we'll feel like, what is it going to cost to repair veterans to make it acceptable? The same thing. And it's not just, you know, East Gloucester. It's all the things that are needed in there. So what we're going to get for 65 and what we're going to get just to repair to make it accessible and workable for whatever. But the same thing that we did for West Parish or whatever. Well, I understand Melissa, she's right. And we'll work on that. So we have to give a presentation to the city council that can put the correct verbiage. We'll work on it. We'll work on it.
If I could add that all that work is part of the feasibility study. We did a study that assessed the buildings, and then the study that put an addition onto the buildings that would meet the educational program. So all of that work is already in the PSR or the PDP submissions.
But does that include veterans?
No, veterans was not part of our project back
Well,
then.
that's what we want, both of them. Thank you. We'll get that.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is
One
not-
other point, Jonathan.
Sure.
That going through and doing that type of work is not MSBA reimbursable.
But
Jonathan, can I say something even though I'm not on the
Sure,
school committee
okay.
or no?
We're still in
So
session.
that $10 million repairs what's broken, the heat, the ceiling tiles and all of that. What I learned through the feasibility study is that once we get to a certain amount of money, we hit a circuit breaker, and then we have to bring everything up to ADA requirements, and that's even more money. And all of that money is not going to be reimbursed from the state. That's 100% on the people of Gloucester. And then we're going to have a 70-plus-year-old building that is repaired, but does not have the educational programmatic space to meet the needs of our children. So we will still have small groups in hallways. We will still have classrooms divided into multiple places. We will still not have an art room. We will still not have a music room. We will have all of those things will not be afforded to these students. And that's just East Gloucester. So we might put money to fix the broken pipes and the air quality and all that, but we are not going to be giving the students the education that meets our educational profile and their needs.
When we did West Parish, we put into St. Anne's School $1.2 million for 2 years. That's still on this, for 2 years, $1.2 million. And that's what you get when you keep repairing old schools. And that's what keeps happening, because once keeps happening. We had the session with school committee with the trailers and everything else. That extra 10 million or what we might have to borrow, we can start putting into Beaman. There's things that we need to do with the other schools that we're not, this is our last chance, or else I wouldn't be complaining or here today. This is our last chance, because I don't know what anyone else knows about the state, and a lot of people need to sit on some of these Zooms, but the government already said it. Take it now, because you'll never see for a long time. Never see this kind of reimbursement. They'll have some kind, but never the reimbursement we are going to get. And Gloucester got it again within 10 years span, which is very rare, So you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, take what you can for the reimbursement, look what you have, and move forward, because we're in a mess right now. And the billions and billions that we're under, and the Chapter 90, everything's going to be cut. I'm just praying. I'm praying. Okay, that by the time this goes and starts building, we still have a roof over their heads. That's all I'm gonna say, because we still have to repair these things. Thank you.
Anything else? Samantha?
I have a quick question. Sorry about the crying kid. Back to what Rich said about the loan authorization. What is the process for that? I'm genuinely concerned that if we don't have that sort of in the works, we're not really going to move forward with the community.
The process would be that the CFO draws up the language, the mayor puts it before the city council advertises for a public hearing. They have a public hearing, and then they vote to borrow the money.
And so what's the timeline for that? Like, are we saying that that's going to happen in the next couple months, or
well,
what?
I can't say how it's going to happen, but you heard the possibility. The timeline takes about six weeks
Okay, so
from when you start.
For people who are trying to get support for this project, when can we say that there's a loan authorization guaranteeing that those two pieces of the project will get covered? Because like I said, I'm not opposed to this project. I'm fully in support of this project. I wholeheartedly believe that you will not get the community support unless there's guaranteed money for those two pieces of this project. So I'm just curious.
I can't answer that. It's up to the CFO and the mayor to put it before the city council. We can't.
Well, let's work on this budget. After July, we'll sit down with John and we'll put it through.
Okay.
We're just going to put an estimate up to, because we don't have the exact numbers, as you know.
Yeah, and again, like I hope that we prioritize that piece of it, because I would like to be able to say with honesty that those costs are covered.
Absolutely.
Okay. We also got to get MSBA to approve, but it's not, and there's a lot of other steps along the way. MSBA is not going to be thrilled about the vote. So we'll see. So we have a motion to adjourn from the building committee. Do we have, did we make?
Move.
Yeah.
Jonathan, do you explain to them that, you know what, if you don't go full force in front of the SBA, that's why I'm here today, with at least we understood one, but with the one present, the two knows, that we might not even get this in the next field. We're not even going to get.
This is very disappointing.
They probably could say, no, you're not, and we're going to go to another city that's all compliance and ready to gun ho. So it's because they need their money, and they would love to say no to us, and then we're done, just so you know. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn for the building committee. Chris, can we have a roll call vote?
Yes. Jonathan Pope,
Yes.
Richard Sapphire,
Yep.
Jason Rogers,
Yes.
Greg Catamatori,
Yes.
Kathy Clancy,
Yes.
Donna Compton,
Yes.
John Dunn,
Yes.
Gary Frisch,
Yes.
Matt Fusco,
Yes.
Joe Lucido,
Yes.
Amy Pastorello,
Yes.
and Mayor Taken.
Yes.
Thank you.
The building committee is adjourned. Do we have a motion to adjourn from the school committee?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Maria, could we have a roll call vote?
Mr. Favazza,
Yes.
Chairman Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Mayor Taken,
Mr. Loomis, welcome aboard. Yes.
Thank you very
Ms.
much.
Weeson,
Yes.
and Kathy Clancy.
Yes.
Hello.
Me too.
Okay. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.